Global snobs against Trump. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, they say that the type of friends we have speaks volumes about our character. But for former President Trump, the type of enemies he has is perhaps even more telling about the kind of leader he is. We already know about the elites here at home who are doing everything in their power to defeat Trump. There's billionaire Alex Soros, who met with Tim Walz yesterday. He appeared to be in his favorite genuflect position. Then there's billionaire Mark Cuban, who it seems is incapable of measured thought about Trump's enduring popularity. And of course, let's not forget Oprah, who hosted a TV event for Kamala Harris last week.
You just stepped into your power.
And let's not skip over the outside groups funded by the super rich that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-Trump ads and lawsuits. Huge donor money also flows to smear groups staffed by never-Trump hatchet men. But Trump doesn't just have to beat all of them and their money. He's also up against the global elites who love having a weak U.S. president in place who puts foreign interests before America's. That's why they love Biden. One of them spoke the quiet part out loud earlier this week. A UK Labour minister tagged Trump with creating xenophobia in her own country. Speaking at a Labour Party conference on Monday, Angela Eagle referenced what she called the constant drumbeat of toxic anti-immigration, anti-immigrant rhetoric that has become emboldened not only in Britain but across the Western countries. I mean, Trump does the same. It's astonishing. Quite the level of vitriol that it has created, creating a space, I think, for overt racism on our streets. Now, her idiotic comments put the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, in a tough spot. After all, come January 20th, he may have to work with the man she just defamed. Well, he quickly tried to distance himself from her remarks, but she was not alone. The mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who's previously called Trump a racist, sexist, and homophobe, just issued his own not-so-subtle warning to Americans before they go to vote.
What I'd say in a respectful way to Americans is, I don't think you realize that the rest of the world is watching because we've got skin in the game.
I seem to remember something about Independence Day, the Revolutionary War, where there was something about how Americans had that inalienable right, Sadiq, to choose their own leaders, regardless of what Britain thinks we should do. Last time I checked, London doesn't have any electoral votes, much less a veto. And thank God, given their lame choices lately. But the world is making it pretty clear. The more you hate America, and the American people, especially those ones who voted for Trump in 2016, the more determined you are to support Kamala Harris. Putin already told us whom he prefers.
I've said that our so-to-say favorite was the acting president, Mr. Biden. He's been taken out of the race, but he advised all his supporters to support Mrs. Harris. That's what we'll do. We'll support her as well.
As for China, they're signaling their support for Democrats, happily engaging in dialogue with Biden's three stooges, Yellen, Blinken, and Austin. And of course, the party's future presidential candidates also get the star treatment there. But Harris and her team, they don't seem to understand that it is the job of the U.S. president, what Jason Miller was just talking about, to look out for the interests of Americans. And so when she's endorsed by foreigners who obviously want to defeat America or just dislike the American tradition, it sets off alarm bells for American voters. In other words, they think that she will not advocate for America's interests on the world stage, that she's going to be easily manipulated by the global establishment, and that they'll be able to take advantage of her just as they took advantage of Biden. The Harris campaign should be embarrassed by these stories about UN staffers and diplomats supporting her and opposing Trump. But Harris, she doesn't know what she's doing, so she wears it all as a badge of honor. And it's really a badge of disgrace. The irony is, it was President Trump who presided over a peaceful world. It was President Trump who had no military conflict start on his watch, who got the Abraham Accords done, and who was bringing the nations of the world together. All because his firm, pro-American approach to diplomacy was more effective than all of her type of globalist rhetoric. Peace, as Reagan understood, and as Trump clearly understands, comes through strength. And even assassination threats won't stop him.
Our enemies are desperate to prevent Donald Trump from returning to the White House because they know I will make America great again. They don't want that. 4 years ago, our country was feared and respected, and our country will soon be feared and respected again. We have to have that. And that's why we all need to pull together to thwart these attempts and to bring back American strength, power, and prestige.
It's also important to understand that there are leaders around the world, though, who do agree with President Trump. Argentina's new president understands the real meaning of freedom. And pay close attention. It's not all about abortion.
I want to be clear so that there's no poor misunderstanding here. Argentina is going through a profound process of change currently, has decided to embrace the ideas of freedom. These are ideas that say that all citizens are born free and equal before the law, that we have inalienable rights granted by our Creator to life, to freedom, and to property.
Well, I'm sure Harris's people, the global elites, recoiled at Milei's remarks because his words track more closely with our founders than anything that they'd ever say at the UN or anywhere else. On Election Day, I doubt many Americans are going to worry much about what the anti-American snobs at the UN think about Trump or Soros or the crowd. I don't think they're going to be too concerned about Oprah and Taylor Swift making them happy. And I don't think they're going to lose much sleep about Zelensky's opinions. Trump's betting that voters want peace over war.
Biden and Harris caused this situation, and now they're locked in. They're locked in. They're not going to be satisfied until they send American kids over to Ukraine, and that's what they're trying to do. And the moms and dads of America don't want their kids fighting Ukraine and Russia, and we're not going to have our soldiers die across the ocean.
Americans of all backgrounds, men and women of all races and ethnicities, I think will, in the end, think for themselves before voting. So if you like the status quo with the economy, the border, Ukraine, definitely vote for Kamala. But if you think we need to return to the policies of 2019, vote for the guy who was president then. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.